Welcome to this video. I'm going to run through what we can do with CSS and JavaScript in order to build a little navigation menu, a burger menu. So we've got a demo website here. We've got a little navigation bar that runs horizontally. And if I go into the inspector in Chrome and I put this into a mobile view, we can see we've got a little burger menu there, the 3 lines that when it's clicked on causes this little animation effect here. Go back up to desktop and it flicks back to this view. Okay, so that's what we're going to build. So the starting point for this is I've got this website here with these HTML files and the CSS in it, etc. Let's just open this up in live server to show the starting point. So the starting point is it's already looking like this. We've got our desktop view, and then in mobile we've got our menu, but it's not animated, so we're going to concentrate on building the burger menu animation, show how we can do that. In terms of what we've got here in the index page, we've got a mobile style sheet there, a mobile first style sheet that's been loaded from in here, and it's styling up this nav, it's giving it a background colour, and then we've got a list inside of that, an unordered list. So this is the styling here, flex direction column when it's in mobile view. So if we go into the nav, you see this is a flex here, flex direction of column. When we move out to desktop, that's going to flip, which it does. Let's put it into responsive mode. So as we move that out, you can see that it's flipping from column to row, and there'll be some other tweaks to in terms of the design, but that's the main difference between the two. Okay, so how would we go about building a burger menu for that? Well, first of all, I'm going to add in the burger menu itself, and one way we could do this, you can find little images for this, but we can do this through a HTML entity. So this HTML entity code here will actually draw this, what's called a trigram, which we can use as a burger icon. So that's a nice easy approach to use. So in my index page here, I'm going to locate I've got my nav, and it's inside of a header here that I really want my burger menu to be placed. So inside the header, let me add a div tag in. I'll give this an ID of burger icon, and then inside there I'm going to put in a button. And so if I had test in there, just to show you what that would do, so we've got a button of test. What does that look like? Let's save it and we'll go and have a look. Just refresh. There we go, we can see the test button is appearing up over there. So we want to stylize that a little bit. So that would be where inside of, instead of saying test, we'll use this entity value here, and that can go in there, and that will put the 3 lines of the burger menu on like so. Okay, now that is a HTML button, so it's picking up the HTML button styling. So I would probably want to get rid of that. So in my mobile style sheet, let me create some rules down here for the button. So it's inside the burger item icon, and it's our button there. We could create a class or something if we want, but we'll do it this way. So I'm just going to take over the styling of that button. So we'll set the background color to be transparent. It is just about there, you can see, with the little shadow. We'll switch the border off. So I'll switch the border to none. We'll get rid of the outline. These are all features that the button will have. Let's give it a cursor pointer, although really on mobile that's irrelevant, but it would look nice on the when we're testing it. Let's give it white colour as it's suggested, and I'll give it a fairly decent font size of, say, 2 rem, which is a relative unit, like 200%, I should say, roughly. So if we go back, that's looking better. See, we've got that burger menu button there. Let's move this into mobile view, and we can see that's looking okay. And I do want it positioned. The menu is going to be up here, so I do want this positioned over to the right hand side. So that means I'm going to have to do a little bit of tweaking around with the CSS on the mobile view. So first of all, I might have done this already. Let's have a look. No, I haven't. So on the on the header, I'm going to add in position relative. So the header here, which has got these parent element, which is the parent of the burger, this div, which has got our little message in it, and then the nav. That is, I've made that position relative. That's so that I can then make the burger itself, the burger icon itself, I can make that what we call position absolute. It's put some suggestions in there for me. Now, position absolute means it will be positioned exactly these values from the top and left hand side, but by making its parent element position relative, this is positioned absolutely with relative to its parent, if that makes sense. So you'll see that that is now appearing here. If I went to the CSS for the burger, which is here because it's positioned absolutely from the top. If I switch the left off, you see it move. That's that 10 pixels it's applying there. If I put in a 60 pixels, you'll see it move down. So I can basically put it anywhere I like, but it's doing this relative to its parent. If that wasn't position relative, you would find it might move it to some other wild location. So it's always a good idea to put the containing element of an absolutely positioned feature inside of a parent that's relative. That's what I've done there. Now, so I do want this really over on the side. So if I make left the top as 10, but I change the right to be 10, it will move it over to the right hand side like so. I might just adjust that a little bit in a second once it's got all the stuff in there. So I make that right, and now it's appearing over on the right hand side. Okay, now what I will also want to do is when this is in view, I want this to be over the top of these images here. So our nav here, we also want to position this absolutely, because the thing with position absolute is you can place stuff in what's known as a Z-index stack where they sit on top of each other. So we've got our nav at the moment. We will have a rule for that, which we've got, which is just setting the background colour. So, but in addition to the background colour, I'm going to say that the position is absolute. And if I save that, we'll go back, you can see how that places that on top of there. Now, it's obviously truncated the width there, so I'll make the width 100%. That's spreading out now across the page. And we could say that it's going to be 0 from the top and 0 from the left. That's what it would be anyway, but if you wanted to know what the defaults were, that's what they are. Now, you might be wondering, where's the burger menu item gone? That's because it needs to be stacked on top of this one now. We haven't ordered the stack and it's just doing it via the HTML. So we can use an attribute called setIndex, and I've set that to 2 in case we need to set something at 1. That should put the burger icon above that. I've got a slight UI issue here in that really should be pushed down a little bit. So looking at the UL, what we could do is just add a bit of padding at the top of there. You can experiment with this down here, you see. So we could say, let's put some padding on the top. And let's say it was 40 pixels. So that's looking about right. Let's move that down so that this is free from that. Okay, so let's find that UL rule which was there. So we always had a padding on the left. We're going to add a padding to the top. You could do this the longhand, shorthand way if you wanted. So we've got, so the top would be 40 pixels, and then we could say that everything else was 0, 0, 0. Okay, don't forget the semicolon at the end. So let's look at that now. So that's looking good. Obviously we haven't got any interaction on that just yet. If you wanted to tweak around with the position of that when we inspect it, where you can see there is a little bit of margin built into the button itself. So maybe where we positioned the burger there with these top and right, let's just try setting those to 0, which would be the default. We'll see that looks okay. So we're quite happy with that. And you can make that a little bit bigger or smaller if you wanted to, using that font value there. But I'm quite happy with that. And obviously it's sitting on top of the image that is behind it. So if we wanted to, if we want to hide it, we need some way of changing that. So we would need a class really to indicate when our navigation bar is open. So we've already got a nav rule up here. So I'm going to build it in its closed state first, and then we'll add a rule, CSS rule for when it's open. So we'll say that its maximum height is 0. So with that in place, you'll see it does this kind of weird thing, but you've got this kind of strange background thing going on, because it doesn't want to apply that there are other children elements in that which you can see, so you don't see the background colour. But we could also say overflow hidden, and that would hide that content. So it is there, but it's currently hidden. So if it was open, so we'll create, if it had a class of open attached to it, which we will attach for our JavaScript in a second, we could give it a max height. It's code hinted to me there, but now I'm going to make it 300 pixels. And if I manually went and added the class of open to that, we should be able to see it. So there's our, it's this class here that's going to perform the magic, because if that wasn't there, it hides it. So we'll be able to kind of toggle between those two states. That's the idea. Okay, so let's now, we're now in a position where we can build the JavaScript out for this. So we'll go to, we'll create a new folder, which I'll call JS. And then inside of there, I'll create a new file, which I'll call burger menu.js. I've got a JS file. And we'll build the immediately invoked function expressing the iffy, just to keep things nice and tidy. So that would involve me having some parenthesis, and then inside that a function call. I'm using an arrow function like that, and then parenthesis at the end to actually call it. So that's my construct. Let's we start here with our code, we end here with our code. Let's put a console message in to test it's worked. Okay, so just a little test message. So no errors on that, which is good. Let's go to our index page, Let's add that in. Oh, I'd already got that in, so I'd loaded the script tag in. There's my burger menu. Just make it uppercase menu, and then we're going to defer it, so I'm not going to call this code until the page is executed. Right, so let's go and test. Let's go to console. See, we get a little message there saying the burger has started, so it has found the code. So that was already in there. So that's the script tag going in the head of the document. Right, so what we need then is to, once you're happy with that, you can get rid of the console, delete it, but I'm going to set some constants up. So first of all, we want the burger button itself. Remember, we gave that an ID, a burger icon, so we can use document.getElement by ID of burger icon. And then we're going to want to reference the navbar here because we want to be able to change in that class. So again, that'll be a constant, so we'll call it navbar. Didn't have an ID, but it has. It's the only nav, so we could use document.querySelector and then just go after the nav because there's only one. So we know that will work, and it's the first one that we're going to find. Okay, now we need an event. It's nicely coded into me here, so we could add an event listener to click, and when that's clicked, we could have it go after the navbar here and then toggle. It's a really useful little JavaScript method here that will remove if it finds open and then add it if it doesn't find it. So it toggles, it's going to remove that class or add that class as appropriate to the navbar's class list. Okay, so open is our class that we set up here that is enabling the max height. Right, let's have a little test. Let's just click on here. So we've now got the toggle effect going on. So how is that working? Let's just prove. There's the nav of class. Zoom in on that. So there's the nav class. It's currently empty. Now it's open. Now it's shut. Now it's open. Now it's shut. So it's just a simple case of toggling the class. Now, how do we get a nice little animation there, though? Well, that's where we could use CSS animations. So we could say that if this changes, if this transitions, so again, it's coded into me there. So if it transitions, the property we're interested in transition is this max height value. That's saying take half a second to change from the 0 to the 300. So let's see what that looks like. And we get our little animation as it transitions between those two states. So CSS animations like that, really efficient way of animating stuff. But what you need is a change in state. So max height is either 0 or 300. It will transition between those two. It will take half a second. So by being able to toggle that class on or off, we're facilitating that animation. And one last thing we need to think about is that when we roll out to the desktop view, it's all a little bit weird. We've got our burger menu, we can't see the nav bar, so we need to fix that up. So we've done this mobile first, so we can just fix things up in the nav, in the desktop.html, desktop.css I should say. So then we need a rule for the nav just to change its behavior. So it's inheriting all the other behavior, and the nav was previously in the mobile style sheet, it was what's known as position absolute. If you want to set it back to the normal position behavior, is you set it to position static. I'll show you what that will do. So it's just we've got our nav, and there we go. Yeah, so you can see that it's made that available now. Let's just get a little bit more of the styling up so you can see. So there's the static overruling the absolute. So that's moving it. You see, it's not positioned absolutely anymore. So it's moved into location. It is in the open mode there. Let me just ensure it isn't, because that shouldn't be there by default. Right, so let's change it now. So it's in when it's made static. Now we can't actually see it just yet. So it was shown before because it was open, it was visible. But static is only giving me half of the solution. Certainly stop it being positioned absolutely. What we need to do is give it a max height, because remember by default that was 0. Let me make this 60 pixels. And now you can see it in play there. So if the static wasn't there, it would be positioned up there, which is obviously not what we want. So it's moved it down there. We've got this issue here because we added that additional padding on the top. So that was on the UL. We've already got a rule for the UL there. So we could now say that we want padding top to be 0 as well. We just make all the padding 0. We'll do the trick there. And let's move that into place. So you see we've got the two different menu styles now. We've still got the burger menu sitting there, which is of no use in this desktop mode. So we'll just simply hide the burger menu. So remember that was an ID selector, a burger icon. So when you're in the when your desktop view will say display none, which will hide that. So no burger menu there. Move it into place, and we get that. You do see this little animation as you move between the two, which is slightly artificial. Most users are either going to come in like that, or they're going to come in like that. We're obviously messing around switching between the two. So there you go. So that's how you can build a little burger menu icon. So the animation, to recap, is done through the use of a transition. And you need two values that change via a class. If you want to sit it on top, you use position absolute, and by giving something a Z index, it will sit on top of items. The higher the number, the higher it is in the foreground. And then in our HTML, we just added the button, like so. And then in the JavaScript, it was just a case of building a little toggle method here to toggle the open class on or off, which, as you saw, is performing the magic. Put it to mobile view. So at the moment, no class is there. It's not open. Now it's open. Now it's closed. Now it's open. Now it's closed. Okay, great. So there's lots of other ways that you can do this, but that's just one example. If you were doing this in the React world, we could use a state, a set state, in order to toggle the state of a HTML element to be open, closed, or active, inactive, whatever you wanted to call that particular class there. All right, thanks very much.